One of the most frustrating things about using a computer is sometimes the pieces of software that you use on a daily basis, some of the software you depend on, some of the maintainers of these pieces of especially free and open source software, they make major changes. They make major rewrites. They change some things that in some cases break your existing configurations. And that is the case with Xmobar, which is the panel that I use in my Xmonad window manager. For those of you that use my Xmonad configs, and I know hundreds, maybe thousands of people have used my Xmonad configs over the years, and you guys are using my Xmobar config as well. Those of you that have the DTOS core repository of software enabled on your Arch Linux based system, you guys of course get my configs as well. And I've been getting a lot of requests here in the last couple of days that basically issues opened on my GitLab that Xmobar is broken. These fonts, these are much bigger than they used to be. This is like a 14, maybe a 16 point font, and it's like a default like sans font. It's not actually styled correctly. It's not using the correct font family that I typically use in the bar. So what has happened is the developers of Xmobar, they actually made a major change with Xmobar a couple of months back actually. It's just now that Xmobar, this latest edition, has made it into the Arch repository, so this is just now affecting us over on the Arch side. But they've made some major changes to how fonts work in your config. So if I actually open my config, so let me open my Xmobar config here, and what I've done is, this is an example of what your fonts used to look like in the older versions of Xmobar. You had XFT, so they were XFT styled fonts, colon, and then name of font, then colon, pixel size, colon, you would probably have anti-alias equals true, colon, and then you also had, I think, hinting equals true as well. And this was the case for every font you had listed in Xmobar, but they have gotten away from using XFT fonts, and now they're going to this style of font here. They're using Pango rather than XFT. So they're using a different kind of font rendering here, and you can see the names of the fonts are slightly different in this Pango format rather than the XFT format. So if I actually write this and restart Xmobar, you can see I get back my Xmobar the way it used to look with the proper Ubuntu font family, which is for most of the characters here, and I'm using Font Awesome for the Unicode glyphs here. So for all of you guys that have Xmobar looking all wonky and can't figure out the reasons why, this is the reason why. If you're using my Xmobar configs, or you're using any of my DTOS configs, the DTOS core repository of software, all of this has already been repackaged, and I've already rebuilt all the packages on DTOS, so you should get the latest Xmobar config looking exactly like this now with these correct fonts. Now there is one issue with these new Pango fonts rather than the XFT fonts. Remember in the XFT fonts you had an option to turn on or off anti-aliasing. Well, there's no option to do that using the Pango styled fonts. So there is no anti-aliasing. So don't be surprised if the fonts look a little blurry. In this case here, the fonts I'm using, Ubuntu Bold and then the Font Awesome glyphs, I can tell there's a difference. It's not quite as crisp as the XFT fonts. I know that's going to annoy the hell out of some people, because some people really, some people have really sharp eyes and they can really see every pixel that is out of place. For me, I don't notice it that much now that I've gotten used to it for a couple of days, but on some fonts, it's going to be really, really bad. Some font families are horrible to look at if you don't have anti-aliasing. You know, some of the blocky square styled fonts, maybe things like Terminus, you know, I don't know. Some of those may look a little weird. I haven't tried them, but just know that anti-aliasing is now not even an option in Xmobar, and I don't know if they're going to be able to put it back in. People have been complaining to the dev, hey, you know, this move from XFT to Pango, you know, without anti-aliasing, it doesn't look as good. But his point was he needed to make the change at some point because he was cleaning up a lot of code. He needed to move away from XFT. I think part of the thing is by making the move that he's made with this code base, that Xmobar theoretically should be able to eventually work on Wayland, so that, you know, if you're using a Wayland tiling window manager, Xmobar could become become an option for you guys. Now, one thing I do want to ask you guys is because I know a lot of people are going to complain about the lack of anti-aliasing, and that maybe, and Xmobar now doesn't look quite as crisp and as sharp as it used to. And I know I'm going to get people asking for an alternative. They're going to want an alternative panel. I have Polybar installed on the system. It's not configured to actually work with Xmonad, but if I go into my .config directory, Polybar, cd into that. I actually don't really use Polybar for anything. I think I had Polybar set up to use with BSPWM because, of course, BSPWM doesn't come with a panel, and Polybar is kind of the bar everybody uses. But you see, it still looks really nice. There's the fonts, and they're really crisp and clean, anti-aliased. One thing, you're not going to see workspaces here in Xmonad because I've got to configure my Xmonad config to work with Polybar if that is something I want to eventually do, but I don't know if that is something I want to take the time to do. Let me do a kill all Polybar there. So I want to ask you guys this question. Those of you that are using my Xmonad configs, maybe you grab my Xmonad config from my .files over on my GitLab, or maybe you're using the DTOS Xmonad config because you've installed DTOS. Would you guys like me to create a new Xmonad config designed to use Polybar instead of Xmobar? And I'm not going to get rid of my existing Xmonad configs that use Xmobar because I know a lot of people are going to love to keep using Xmobar. You've already got it configured. Why change, right? If the anti-aliasing the issue is not an issue for you, just stick with Xmobar. But I might package a second version of Xmonad, one designed to use Polybar instead. And that way, when you install DTOS or you go grab my configs off my .files, you have two different versions of an Xmonad config to choose from. You can use Xmonad with Xmobar if you are okay with Xmobar, or you can choose Xmonad with Polybar instead. And I don't mind giving folks those options. It will take some work though, because I would have to now write a new Xmonad config designed to use Polybar. And that's going to be a little bit of work, but I don't mind putting in that work if you guys want it. And of course, I'll make a little video content about that as well. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments down below. Now, before I go, I need to thank a few special people. I need to thank the producers of this episode. And of course, I'm talking about Gabe, James, Maxim, Matt, Mehmet, Mitchell, Paul, Roy, Wes, Armor Dragon, Bash Potato, Chuck, Commander Anchory, George, Lee, Methos, Nate, Jan, Paul, Peace Arch and Fedora, Polytech, Realities for Less, Red Profit, Roland, Tools, Devler, and Willie. These guys, they're my highest tiered patrons over on Patreon. Without these guys, this episode about Xmobar really having some font issues, this episode would not have been possible. The show is also brought to you by each and every one of these fine ladies and gentlemen as well. All these names you're seeing on the screen right now, these are all my supporters over on Patreon. I don't have any corporate sponsors. I'm sponsored by you guys, the community. If you like my work and want to see more videos about free and open source software, subscribe to DistroTube over on Patreon. Peace, guys. Maybe it's time to go hardcore and just not use a panel at all.